to share with you why we decided to transform, kind of the challenges that we face, that we are still facing, and then hopefully some of the approaches to those challenges. Just a quick snapshot about VMware from last year. The two key numbers that stand out for me really is that $6 billion in revenue. Because we're talking about IT, a $325 million IT budget that supports or enables that $6 billion in revenue. And then the other key number is that 18,000 employees. Those are 18,000 customers at IT that we need to please every day. So it's a small group, but I'll do it anyway. I always like to do icebreakers, but I'm not going to have you raise your hand. I'm not one of those presenters who are going to make you think or work. But the next half hour, I'm going to promote everybody in this room, if you don't already hold the title, to CIO. You guys all have all the powers and responsibilities that title entails. Okay, so congratulations. But more importantly, I'm going to give you the job of Basque Iyer, our new CIO, who replaced Tony Scott. Tony, my former boss, got appointed by President Obama to be the CIO of the U.S. So a lot of this is really from Tony and his vision in regards to transforming to a services organization. But imagine that you're in the elevator and our CEO walks in, looks at you in the eyes and says, what exactly are you doing with $325 million? And how is that adding value to my company? And a year ago, and even today, I'll be honest and very authentic, we had no language to be able to describe the value that we brought to the business. We knew we had a lot of things, a lot of hosts, virtual machines, server storage, 500 applications, but we had no way to be able to say, how is that all, what's the value behind all those components? How much do we really spend on running the business and changing the business? I first joined VMware, I said, well, how much do we spend on changing the business? Well, that's all projects. I don't know. Not every project is going to be changed the business. So for us, it wasn't whether or not we're going to transform to a services organization. It was really about how fast are we going to get there. And it's beyond just technology. At VMware, we're an innovation company. We love technology. We love to talk about technology. We love to implement technology. We love to talk about implementing technology. But I think we all agree today for IT, it's beyond just managing technology. It's really about how are we going to manage, how are we going to be able to present ourselves to the enterprise, view ourselves, organize ourselves, and be able to compare ourselves to alternate sourcing mechanisms. It's in this build versus buy world that we're in. I don't know about you, but our business, they're very quick with the credit card, right? If we go to them and say it's going to take us 6 months to deliver, you're going to pop out that credit card. About a fifth of our application portfolio is SaaS. So we needed to kind of reorganize ourselves. So today's IT mandate, along with kind of that challenge of us trying to reorganize, this is what we are hearing from our customers. And this morning in the keynote, I think some of these words popped out. I think for VMware IT a year ago, I think what we were hearing from the business is we need to be more agile, more cost efficient. But then we're also being asked we need to be able to operate at the speed of the business. The days of 9, 12 projects life cycle, it's got to be 2-3 months. So this really then propelled us to think about transforming to a services organization. I think the mindset at VMware also is that we're a cost center. We need to be able to change that to be more of an innovation center. I think we're still known today as troubleshooters, and we need to be present ourselves more as solution providers. One of the challenges that we face as we continue to grow from 2 billion, 6, 10, 15 is really the expectations from the business. I don't know about you, you don't have to raise your hand, but I'm going to assume that your IT budget did not increase this year. Ours actually remained steady. I think it actually decreased. And our ability to deliver has always been a little bit above and beyond what has been expected of us within IT. But the business expectation is through the moon. And it's really unsustainable for us, even as we start to migrate off of Oracle over to SAP, to really kind of continue on this trend. So for us to really operate at the speed of business, and I think instead of saying IT as a service, it's really about running IT as a business. And I think that resonates very well with our new CIO as well. I was talking to him about IT as a service last week, and he got a little lukewarm about it. But when we started talking about running IT as a business, then it started to resonate a lot more with them. So not only is running IT a business, it's big business. We continue to see IT, worldwide IT spend trend upwards. This is almost $4 trillion. And not all of that spend today is flowing directly into the IT corporate organizations. In fact, more and more of that spend, according to Gartner, is flowing from the consumers of those services to outside service providers. What's important about this is we need to give that amount of money, that's almost $4 trillion, the attention that it deserves. We're not going to have our job very much now. This was a very simple slide I created for the organization a year ago. If they had tomatoes, they would have thrown tomatoes at my head. Prior to going on this journey, we really only had a project portfolio tool. We didn't have a service catalog. We didn't have a service portfolio. We didn't even really have an application portfolio. And still today, we don't even have a CMDB. But as I started to talk about running IT as a business to the organization, I said, you know what, if the value we bring to the business is through a collection of services, then a project or a program is only the promise of value. Until that project goes into production, starts doing what it's supposed to be doing, it hasn't delivered anything yet. But the majority of our money and our resources were focused on these low-set, high-profile projects. The value that we felt we were delivering to the organization was really how we were managing those projects. Were we hitting that go-live date? So how I kind of flip this on its head with the organization to say is, if value is through services, then a project or a program is the means to change the service catalog, whether you need to add, remove, or modify a service. And again, this is still kind of part of our organizational change management. We're not there yet. We're still in the process of trying to get this to resonate across the organization. So to propel us, to get us going, we create a very simple playbook, 4 chapters. And chapter 1 starts with defining your services. IT services, business services, your application services. Once you do that, then you assign service roles. We keep it very simple. At Cisco, we had about 7 service roles. VMware, we have about 3. We have a service owner, an architect, and a delivery manager. And that service owner kind of plays that business relationship management role. 3rd chapter is data quality management. A year ago within VMware, that actually said VMware on VMware because one of our key initiatives across the company is dog food in our own products. But as we started to implement our service catalog tool, we found out that there was a lot of bad data coming into the tool from our portfolio tool, case management tool. So we made that a high priority. And then the 4th chapter is really about how do we execute and measure our services. Where are all the metrics that we need to be able to measure and hopefully optimize our services. And then on the bottom there is organizational change management and governance. And that's just there's never an end date for organizational change management. And I would say that's probably the number one key thing that you're going to have to focus in on is organizational change management, because at VMware, change is tough. And so you really need to really handle and really kind of bring people along this journey. So to create the service taxonomy, we leverage a framework called BOAST. It's from a small company called Proact. They were actually acquired from Informatica a couple months ago. We like the BOAST framework for a variety of reasons, but chief among them is the fact that it's a 4-layer framework that looks at architectures at 4 layers. The business layer, operations, systems, and technology. A year ago, before we adopted BOAST, IT, we only lived at the S and the T layer. We were disconnected from the B and the O. So one of the goals of transforming to a services organization is to be able to speak to the business in business terms. The BOAST framework allows us to do that. As requirements flow down the model, then capabilities flow up. So when we start talking about how we're going to enable AirWatch, for example, when we acquired AirWatch, well, what capabilities do we need to deliver or implement AirWatch? And then what systems and tools do we need to enable those capabilities? And at the T layer, well, what technology do I need to enable those systems and those tools? The other reason why we like BOAST, it comes with these out-of-the-box planning models. It's really plug and play. So I talked earlier about us having 500 applications. A year ago, our portfolio that we thought was 300, now it's at 545. But by leveraging both, it allowed us very easily to be able to take all of our apps and be able to plug it into the model. And then it told us all the business services that those IT applications deliver. In some cases, they delivered IT services. Then we create a very simple service hierarchy, a 4-layer. I guess I left the number 4. But the hierarchy is very simple. We had the same type of concept at Cisco. At the top layer, we have what we call service category. That is what really should be defined by the business, because that's truly what the business, what they're going to see if they were to go to the employee storefront. So an example there could be collaboration. Underneath the service category would be all your services, whether they're IT services or business services or IT for IT services. So keeping the theme of collaboration, you could have email and calendaring or messaging. Underneath that, you have what you call service offering. So this is a different flavor of service. So at VMware, we actually have 2 types of email applications. We have Microsoft Exchange and Zimbra. In fact, the company is supposed to be 100% off of Zimbra. And as we went through this process, we found out there was a small little team that they were still using Zimbra. And I would have bet $100 it would have been an R&D team, but it actually ended up being a finance team. So eventually, one of these days, we might have to go to them and give them an invoice and say, here, you need to start paying for Zimbra, or you need to migrate off of Zimbra or Exchange. The 4th layer is assets, and assets is more than just applications. It's hardware, facilities, people, purchase services, everything you would find in a general ledger. And what we're able to do with a service catalog is we actually pull data directly from our general ledger directly into our service catalog tool, and then we're able to spread those costs all the way out across all of our services. So for every single layer of our hierarchy, there is a TCO, or a total cost of ownership amount for every single layer. In parallel, as we were defining our services, I talked about we needed to create a new operating model. So with Tony Scott and his support and leadership, we actually rolled out a new operating model last August. And in fact, since that time, we've actually consolidated that operating model. But this really kind of allowed us, once we finalized this model, to really start to define our IT for IT services. So an example of that work is we met with each leader, and we said, what do you do? What do you do in your space? He says, well, I think we do this and that. So by leveraging BOS, and BOS has about 220 services out of the box, we were able to go back to leaders and say, well, here are the 5 services we feel that you guys do. Do you agree? Yes. Then we asked them, well, who are your customers? If you were to charge your customers, would they feel that these are the services you're delivering to them? And then imagine doing this for all of your functions within your organization. It could be IT, it could be R&D, it could be marketing, it could be sales. But imagine going back to that leader and saying, well, these are the services that people feel that they're delivering to you. Do you agree? Now, at VMware, we do not do chargeback. We do showback. We're starting to communicate the showback model. But it was very important to have this. And this was, and again, you don't have to read this, but this was the first time ever that we were actually, as an IT staff, we're actually able to actually see what each function actually did. And before we even started using the tool, we actually found a group of people in a different function that actually did computer storage. So we were actually able to move people from one function over to this specific function just based off of creating these service flows. And again, every service and service offering that you see there has a TCO number. And without relying on finance IT to create those gorgeous pivot tables and Excel sheets that take a while to download, for the first time we're actually able to go in our service catalog and actually able to manage our functions within the tool, a dynamic dashboard. And we're going to start doing service reviews where for each of these services we have a service owner, and they get out in front of staff and they talk about, well, why are you spending $1.5 million? What's behind that number? And that's part of the service reviews, and I'll share with you some examples of those metrics. For the CIO, this was the first time that Tony was actually able to look at his organization and see exactly how much they're spending month over month. Start looking at that trend analysis. First time that we're actually able to look at our consumers, our business units, and see what they're spending their money on. And I'll be very transparent. Right now, we're pretty much doing a peanut butter cost for our BUs. And over time, as we continue to mature, we'll start to get off the peanut butter spread, and we'll start to actually get real data for the business units. So I mentioned that we did not have a service portfolio a year ago. We didn't have a service catalog. We leverage a company called True Technologies. We use it not only as our service portfolio tool, but also our application portfolio. So in the spirit of leverage and reuse, we leverage their tool for multiple capabilities. The way it works is we take that BOSS meta model, we plug it into True, and we send all of our active services over to our service catalog, which is vRealize Business. It just got rebranded. It used to be called IT Business Management. What's nice about this is as we send over our services over to vRealize, we can actually send real-time costs back over into True. So our architect could actually create or modify or create a new service in True, pull in real-time costs, and they'll have a pretty good estimation of what that infrastructure is going to cost. So hopefully, knock on wood, the days of this plus or minus hardware 30% cost, hopefully it gets down to, plus or minus 5%. Very, very powerful. And we obviously work with other tools. vRealize Automation helps provision a lot of the hardware that we have that when employer will go and ask for a lab, vRealize Automation will do that provisioning. And again, this is part of our roadmap. These are some other companies that we work with. Some we've integrated, some we are looking to pilot to integrate. You already know about BOSS. We use a company called BDNA. Think of them as a product catalog. So they help with that T layer. So they actually give us the hardware name, the version, MSRP pricing. We plug that into True, and then True sends that over to vRealize. I'm not going to go through every one of these. If you want more information, please talk to me afterwards. I'm more than happy to talk to you about that. So I believe this was mentioned during the keynote. Automation is king. At Cisco, we spent hundreds of hours putting together these PowerPoint decks that were for a 10-minute, one-time discussion with our CIO. And then it almost seemed like we got done with the deck, and the next day we had to start the next deck for the next quarter. So we have a philosophy, we're trying to have a philosophy. No Excel, no PowerPoint when we start talking about service metrics. If the metric isn't in the service catalog, then it probably doesn't exist. But I can't stress enough that the automation of source systems is critical, because you want to have that real-time data analysis. What you don't want to have is your CIO come to you and say, I want information on this service, and say, well, I'll get that to you in 2 weeks. Automation is key. These are examples of service metrics. We have not implemented all of these metrics. Again, we're on a journey. I think of it as a crawl, walk, and run approach, and we are definitely crawling. Some metrics that we're interested in implementing by the end of this year is planning what-if scenarios. So we can actually go in there and actually take our FY16 budget, plug it into our catalog, and then it can actually show us the impact to all of our services. Benchmarking is a metric that's going to be important. So we actually have the ability to actually compare our services against other customers in the same industry, leveraging our service catalog. And that's important, because if email costs $3 million, is that good or bad based off of 18,000 employees? So it's nice to be able to actually benchmark and actually be able to leverage our service catalog. These are some examples of kind of some dashboards that we're going to have for our upcoming service reviews. For costing, we can actually drill down to the specific application and be able to show all the assets behind that T layer. Quality and health is probably the next big metric that we want to look at. So we actually pull data from our case management tool. Real time, you can actually view all your case data within our service catalog. So our CIO or leaders, they don't have to go off to another tool to look at all the information. They can actually log into the catalog and actually look at the service and then actually be able to see real-time data. And that's important, because service metrics is beyond just costing. You have to be able to look at the quality of the service, the value, Other metrics that we're going to eventually start to look at is risk, user experience, leverage and reuse. You don't want to have a lot of metrics, you want to keep it 5 or 6, but you want to be able to tell the story behind your service. I'm going to skip that. So this is our roadmap. So a year ago at this time, we established a service portfolio. That was at the same time we implemented our application portfolio. We rolled out a new operating model. Since that time, we've actually downsized it. Identified our services, leveraging both. That took us about a month. Then we assigned service roles, and then we implemented the full IT service catalog just a couple months ago. What's important about this is you're not going to get the catalog right out of the box, and the cost model is not going to be perfect right out of the box. You're going to have multiple iterations. In fact, I would probably say that we'll probably get to version 6 or 7 until we actually feel that we have the right data to be able to start making critical key decisions to be able to actually help with the business. One thing I didn't mention earlier is that when we started this journey, we actually started this without engaging with the business. We did ask the business to join us, and they said, "Oh, no, we're not ready yet," which was actually great because we really needed to kind of peel back the onion, clean up the IT house a little bit. I mentioned we didn't have a CMDB. We thought we had 300 applications, but now we're at 545. So we definitely needed some time to kind of clean up the house. But now the business, they're ready to engage with us. They've heard about BOS. Our business architecture team heard about BOS. We want a slice of that pie. So we're about to work with the business, engage with them. They're going to actually help us create that employee storefront, hopefully that self-service portal. So my last slide, transformation is a journey. You're not going to do this in 3 months, 6 months. It's a journey. You're going to hit some key milestones that I showed you on the previous slide. It's almost essential that you connect business and technical architecture together. A year ago, we were just focused on technical architecture, but you want to be able to connect both business and technical architecture together. Organizational change management is critical. In fact, we're in the process of creating a small organizational change management team to not only work on this initiative, but also work on other things within IT. I cannot stress that enough. The culture is that's a hard nut to crack. Think of yourself not only as a service broker, and we've talked about, order taker, trusted advisor. I like the name solution consultant. That's who we truly are. We are solution consultants. And then last but not least, celebrate and communicate your successes, not only within IT, but also with the business. I actually have someone on the business side, and he knows that we've actually implemented the tool, our catalog, 2 months ago, and he keeps on asking me, "Tim, when am I going to see value? When am I going to see value?" I said, "Look, slow down. We're going to get to that." But again, you want to be able to communicate what you've done and where you're going. And with that said, thank you very much. I'll do Q&A if you have any questions. Yes.
So Tim, you talked about your systems that you plugged in had bad data, and yet you didn't want to use Excel or PowerPoint. So talk to me about how that process helped identify where the issues were and clean it up.
Yeah, so I'll give an example is we started to pull in projects into our catalog. And there's 2 ways that we kind of look at projects. One is this project is benefiting this project, or this project is benefiting this service or these services. The other way is, what services do I need to deliver this project? Do I need QA, architecture, release management? So as we started to pull in projects, we found out that there were a lot of projects that the end date, they were marked active, but the end date was 2002, 2011. There were data that we didn't know who the business owner, various stuff. So we actually had to go back to the PMO. And by the way, we have 2 PMOs within IT. So we said, wait a minute, you guys need to clean up your process. You guys need to be able to kind of understand where we're taking IT as a service. And so we partnered with them. And in fact, we've taken their racing in our racing, because we have a service lifecycle racing. We've actually combined it. So another example is our case management tool. They have their own service taxonomy. We have most. So we had to kind of say, wait a minute, look, let's sync these up, and let's make sure we're talking apples to apples. But it's really going back to the team saying, you guys need to clean up your processes. One of the things that we uncovered is that we did not know which applications belonged to what hardware. I mean, we knew we had 6,500 production virtual machines, servers, and all this stuff, but we didn't know what applications were on there. So we were working with a company called Flexera, but even our enterprise architecture practice, they didn't know. We had True, which is a tool that you should leverage to do that, but we didn't have that. That's why I mentioned we have a peanut butter approach, because we don't know who's using what application. And we're about 50% done of those 545 applications of connecting the infra to those apps. And that's going to be one of the big pushes for us, to really grow the business with value, where I can actually go to them and say, why do we have 35 different content management tools? At Cisco, we did this, we had 52 different instances of Salesforce.com, 15 different survey tools, right? And so for VMware, we're lucky, we're a small company, 18,000 employees, but as we start to grow, we don't want to get to the point where we have 2,600 applications.